Imagine living in a world full of hybrid creatures, angelic entities, and other strange biblical beings. This was the pre-flood world, and today we'll be covering the mysterious creatures of the pre-flood world, and also just how chaotic the world was before the flood. The Book of Enoch paints a vivid story of hybrid entities. Although they are still shrouded in mystery, we know how they came to be. The Book of Enoch explains how the class of angels known as the Watchers got multiple animals and humans for a process known as miscegenation, which means to reproduce with a different race essentially. So this is pretty much the only thing we're told about how these hybrid creatures were created. However, it makes you wonder if the Watchers' creations are still thriving even after the flood due to sightings of hybrid-like creatures such as Mothman, Dogman, and urban legends of other similar creatures. Many people till this day claim they've encountered unexplainable creatures that just aren't right. Not just any people, but sometimes well-respected rangers, officers, and even the most level-headed soldiers. Dogman sightings are a fascinating part of modern cryptid lore, especially in the United States. These creatures are typically described as large, bipedal, and wolf-like, similar to the werewolves of folklore. Here are some notable Dogman sightings. The earliest reported sighting dates back to 1887, when two lumberjacks in Wexford County, Michigan, claimed to see a large dog-headed man walking on two legs. The legend of the Michigan Dogman gained national attention in 1987, thanks to a song written by Steve Cook, a local radio DJ. The song led to a flood of reported sightings, with many describing a creature with the body of a man and the head of a dog standing around 7 feet tall. A more famous encounter with this strange hybrid creature occurred in 1961, when a night watchman near Big Rapids, Michigan, reported seeing a strange, tall creature with glowing eyes running like a man, but with canine features. Linda Godfrey, a local reporter, investigated numerous sightings and documented these encounters. Witnesses often describe the creature as menacing, standing between 6 and 7 feet tall, with fur-covered arms and a wolf-like face. In February 2009, a local outdoorsman reported a strange encounter with a creature while hunting. He described it as standing over 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur, and possessing a human-like body with a canine head. The creature allegedly growled and moved with inhuman speed, disappearing into the forest before the witness could react. And I'm sure you get the point by now. But the most terrifying revelation about these creatures is if they are still indeed alive, they do an amazing job at staying hidden right beneath our noses. The pre-flood world also had fallen angels roaming the earth. Imagine walking outside and seeing gigantic angels walking the earth freely. The angels are known in Genesis as the sons of God. The Book of Enoch does, however, explain what they look like in more detail. They are described as being extremely tall, yet very human-looking angels. In the Book of Genesis, we're told about these angels' actions. And just as a brief reminder for those unaware, I'm quoting the Book of Enoch and the Book of Genesis because the Book of Enoch simply extends onto the Book of Genesis and gives us the full story. Genesis 6 tells us that the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and then they had children together. But before we get to their children, we must go over what else these angels did. In the Book of Enoch, we're told about the same angels. However, they are known as the Watchers. When translated to Hebrew, the name Watchers translates to sons of God, which is exactly what these angels are called in the Book of Genesis. Now that we have that out of the way, let's continue. So the Watchers taught humans heavenly secrets that eventually corrupted humanity. But no matter how bad pre-flood humans got, they were nowhere near as bad as the Watchers' offsprings. The Nephilim giants, which were a mixture between humans and angels, were the most demonic beings you could encounter during the antediluvian period. Not only were they giant and incredibly strong, but they were also unimaginably hostile towards human beings, particularly because humans couldn't provide for these massive behemoths for too long. One thing they did that was so dark, it even makes the fallen angels look less evil, is they consumed human beings and every other living thing on earth. We're told about exactly what the giants did in chapter 7 of the Book of Enoch. It says, "And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. and they became pregnant. And they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. This is the most in-depth description we got of the giants from Genesis. The giants were thousands of feet tall according to the Book of Enoch, approximately 11,000 feet tall. These beings were the sole purpose of why the flood happened. And speaking of souls, when the Nephilim perished, their souls became demons. But although these giants may have been the worst creatures during the antediluvian period, the other demonic beings may shock you. Pre-flood humans seem to have been just as demonic as everything else on Earth. This is due to the fallen angels teaching humans heavenly secrets that humans didn't know how to handle at the time, resulting in complete corruption until the birth of Noah. God mainly wiped out the antediluvian humans because humans were genetically contaminated. If you would like a separate video about the human hybrids, comment part 2. But humans nonetheless turned against God to follow the doctrine of the fallen angels. The story of pre-flood humanity, as described in religious texts like the Bible, paints a picture of a world that spiraled into chaos, corruption, and unrelenting wickedness. It was a time when the very nature of humanity seemed to have been overwhelmed by darkness, and the reasons for this descent into evil offer both a cautionary tale and a reflection on the nature of human choice and freedom. At the heart of the pre-flood narrative lies the concept of free will. Humans were created with the ability to make choices, to forge their paths in life, and to either pursue righteousness or indulge in wrongdoing. But with this freedom came a burden. Early humans were not shackled by divine control. They had the autonomy to shape the world as they saw fit, and tragically, many chose to abuse this freedom. Instead of living in harmony with the natural order and the divine will, humanity turned inward. They became self-centered, driven by base desires and greed. They sought power over one another, indulged in violence, and grew arrogant, believing they were masters of the world. What was meant to be a gift, free will, became the tool of their downfall. They began to define good and evil on their own terms, not according to any higher standard, and this opened the floodgates of moral decay. As the earth filled with people, violence became rampant. Humanity's ambitions led to wars, bloodshed, and a survival of the fittest mentality. The Bible describes this period as a time when the earth was filled with violence. Genesis 6:11. This wasn't merely the violence of occasional skirmishes, but a deep-rooted culture of brutality where might made right, and the powerful oppressed the weak without remorse. Life had lost its sanctity. Instead of living as stewards of creation, humans treated one another with cruelty and disregard, fueled by their lust for domination. In their quest for power and survival, they forgot their divine purpose and descended into a kind of primal existence, ruled by fear and force. The Bible also says that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Genesis 6:5. This statement suggests that humanity wasn't just engaged in outwardly evil actions, but had corrupted itself on a much deeper level. Their very thoughts, desires, and imaginations had been twisted. It wasn't just what they did that was evil, it was who they had become. Every motivation, every plan, every dream was tainted by self-interest, greed, lust, or hatred. They had become so far removed from the innocence and purity with which they were created that their internal moral compass was completely broken. They no longer recognized the difference between right and wrong, and even if they did, they no longer cared. In the end, the overwhelming evil of pre-flood humanity led to divine judgment. The flood described in the Bible wasn't just an act of destruction, but also an act of mercy. Humanity had reached a point of no return, where the very existence of life on earth was threatened by their wickedness. If left unchecked, the violence, corruption, and moral decay would have continued to spiral until nothing good remained. The flood then was a reset, a chance for humanity to start again, to remember the lessons of the past, and to avoid falling into the same traps. But it was also a sobering reminder that while free will is a gift, it carries immense responsibility.